Hello. Yeah. Okay. So let me share my screen. Sorry, Kevin. Your mic. The volume is very soft on your side, so I'm unable to hear very well.
Hello?
Yes. Yes. Now I can hear you better. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by data formatting? Mhm. Okay. So let first of all, because maybe this is my first interaction with you, and I'm not really familiar with your background. Could you tell me a bit of your background? I mean, what's your experience and things like that, just to give me a little bit of context. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Any experience in testing? No. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Now, okay, thanks for explaining. Now that I know a little bit about you, so let me explain about this testing field. Okay, in this testing field, when you start off a project, there's something called a test strategy, or they'll ask you to do a test plan, right? So that is when you tell the client, okay, I am going to do this test, and this test, and what is all these tests will serve as. Okay, so now for our test strategy for mbank, all right. Um, I recommended number one is integration test or system integration test. All right, this is what we call a SIT for short. All right. Then I recommended a functional test. All right. And I recommended a performance test, regression test, and finally a user acceptance test. Okay. Now, all these five tests has a reason for it to be there. Okay, so let's go through one by one. All right. So first thing is system integration test. Now, by its name, it's actually means that this type of test tests the flow of an entire system from beginning to end. All right. So you can test like what you state in your presentation, like test about accuracy, data format, and things like that, right? But the thing is, here we got functional tests, right? So that it kind of overlaps, right? So what I like to do is I would like to I like to do a distinction that system integration tests the integration points of a whole system. All right. So for mbank, I don't know if you have this document or not. Let me share that with you. Give me a moment. Okay, can you see this document? Okay, I'm not sure whether you have this or not, but this is like the proposed architecture lah for mbank lah. or the data lake, right? So in a system integration test, we are going to test from every integration point from start to end. So meaning it starts from here, which is where the source comes in. All right, this is one integration point. Second integration point, because this is the ETL, right? Third integration point, which is this is the data lake itself, right? Fourth integration point, where there are portals connected to items like Active Directory for your user access, and you have some integration for your user access security and things like that. So this is your fourth integration point, right? Metadata, fifth. Sixth integration point, which is your visualization tool, all right? And the last integration point, which is the synchronization between production and disaster recovery. Right. So in the system integration test, what I do is I'll test all these integration point. And how do I test this integration point? It could be like, for example, from source to the ETL. First, I will test whether, because we're receiving it as FAT file, right, or delimited file, CSV and stuff like that, can the CSV from the source system arrive into our environment first of all? All right. So next, I test the ETL. Can the ETL read or see the file in that it receives? All right, and can it pump data into the data lake or not? So when I do this test, right, when I will just take a small set and see and run one pipeline and just check in the data lake, say, oh, yeah, that one table is populated, looks about right, okay, but I don't really check for accuracy and things like that. Because I'm just testing whether it's integrated as stated in my requirements. All right, do you follow me so far? Okay, all right. So that is system integration point. It's just mainly testing integrations points in the designed system lah. Okay, so let me switch back. Okay, so now we tested the integration points, right? We go into functional test. And what is a functional test? Functional test is a test that tests your functions, all right? So in your functional document, right, you say, oh, this system will have a user access management, it will have a ETL to pump in data, and it will have this, that. Okay, so in my functional test, I will test all these functions. Like, okay, so I have one test set or several test sets to test the user access function. Say number one, this user access module must be integrated to Active Directory. So that means that any account in the Active Directory I can use to log in, and any account which is not in the Active Directory I cannot use to log in. It will return me error, right? Things like that. So it tests function by function, and how you know what function there is, as I said earlier, is based on your functional spec or your design doc. Okay, do you understand so far? And this will deep dive into things like I will check for accuracy. Like in the case of the ETL, I will check. Okay, if I'm gonna ingest 13 columns, there must be 13 columns at the end of it, all right? And the 13 columns must be this whatever name that is specified in the requirement, the design doc. And if I ingest 15 rows, it must appear 15 rows in my data lake. So all this accuracy tests will be done in the function test. With me so far? Okay, any questions? It can actually, but it depends on the dependency of your system. And why I say that is because let's say your use case, your functional in one of your functional tests is about the user access management, right? But your user access management doesn't work unless you're integrated with the Active Directory. So if it's not integrated, then you can't do the test. So the in a nutshell is it depends on which goes first depends on your preference and the dependency of the system. Okay. All right. Now third test. What did I say is about? Okay, let's go with what you see here first. Okay, performance test. Okay, why we do this is because as you're right in one of your statements in your slides here is to test this. All right. About security and all that is not under performance test. And how you recover from crash and failure, I feel is more about I feel it should be more in functional test lah. Because this is error handling lah. Okay, so it's mainly more on this, and why we need to do this in mBank is because mBank has a huge data set, terabytes of data. So we need to ensure that the ETL is able to function efficiently or under reasonable amount of time under such loads. So if let's say the performance test is fail, how do you know whether a performance test pass or fail is based on your non-functional requirements, right, in your design doc or your functional specs, right? And what are non-functional requirements is requirements like I need my data from this source ingested into the data lake within 4 hours. That is a non-functional requirement. So I need to ensure that my ETL completes its task within 4 hours. So this is the purpose of the performance test or the stress test. All right. So in mBank, it is mainly about this. For other types of system, it could be concurrent users. So how they test that is they will get a lot of users to log into the system and then see how the system performs. But we're not doing that for mBank. We are more concerned about the ETL's performance and the database performance once the data is loaded. Okay, you're with me so far? Okay, any questions? Okay, good. All right. Now, right, there's one test that is not here, and I brought up to and I asked for you to include this because of something called change requests. In every project, the customer always want change and they want it to be done for free. All right, and the problem is when change enter, how do you know that the changes that you implement in the system won't impact anything else in the system? Correct? So that's the purpose of a regression test, right? But the problem with a regression test is it takes a lot of time and a lot of manpower to perform this type of tests. So that's why we are, in order to do this, we're very careful on the scope lah. All right. So now in a regression test, to avoid spending too much time on testing every time a change comes in, we limit the scope. For example, in the ETL data pipeline, right, I'm ingesting from table A, and table A has 13 columns, right? But then suddenly, out of the blue, they say, oh, table A has changed. Now I have 14 columns. All right. So my regression test will be to test the entire flow for table A from source until it's ingested into the data lake. All right. And I don't do this for other tables like table B, table C, and D. And why? Because the changes don't impact that, ma. So I'm just testing for the flow of table A. I don't even test for user access management. Why? Because this doesn't impact the user access management. Right. So that's how you limit the scope for regression tests, and this is for the sake of the basically the project, like the timeline and things like that. Are you with me so far? Any questions? Okay, you understand the purpose and why we are doing this test and why we are recommending this test. Correct. Okay. So it's important to understand the key takeaway here is it's important to understand why a test is being recommended, different types of tests is being recommended, and why is it done. All right, very important. And of course, this very famous word in every project, user acceptance test. The main function is to ensure the user is okay with whatever we have done and they're happy with it. Because without their sign off in this test, we don't get paid. Okay, that's the whole purpose. Now, there's two ways this user acceptance test can be done. A lot of customers will ask the vendor to write the test case for them, and they will do it. Then they will execute the test. But some users who are more matured, all right, they write the test case themselves, all right, and then they execute their own test. Why this is better is because number one, it really narrows down on, we can really narrow down on what the user actually want and what they're looking for, right? And if they detect a bug in their UAT using this method, we will know whether we are off course or right on the dot, right? But that is another story, right? So for user acceptance, just know that it's a milestone for us to get paid, whether if once you get signed off, you'll get paid, and it's usually done by the execution of the test is done by the user, and most of the time the vendor will have to come out with the test case, Okay, understand? Okay. Now, I did mention something about smoke tests in the Skype. If you, I don't know whether if you noticed or not in the numerous chats that came out yesterday. Yeah. Do you understand what the smoke test is for? Okay. Now, are you familiar with the term unit test? Okay. In coding or development, a unit test is a type of test where you test the smallest unit of code, right, in your program, all right? But since in mBank we are not dealing with any programming or code or anything like that, we can't do a unit test, all right? And why people do a unit test is to ensure, number one is mainly to ensure that the application is fit for testing. Okay, you don't want to send your application for testing, and when the testers start only, suddenly cannot even continue. The whole test is hit a brick wall. All right. So a unit test is to sort of avoid this type of situation, all right. So in mBank, since there's no code and all that, the equivalent of a unit test is called a smoke test. Okay, and basically a smoke test is basically a very quick and simple test to ensure that the application is ready for testing. There is no error that's going to stop the tester right at its tracks and cannot continue. All right, do you understand? Get with me so far? Yes, correct. And in this smoke test is not a detailed test, all right? So, for example, in mBank's context, how I would do a smoke test is number one, I ingest a data set from one table, all right, and I'll check whether it's in the data lake. That's one. The second one is whether I can even log in into the Microsoft ecosystem or not. All right, with my credentials and all that. Okay, can these two met? Great. My smoke test is done. Fit for testing. Tester, please test. Do your integration test or your functional test. Right. So you understand? Okay. So now your integration test and your functional test, especially this needs to change. So if this is too short, you will need to look into the I don't know whether you have a proposal. If you don't have, ask from your link to give you the latest copy. All right, and sort of give examples of what functions based on the proposal that you will be testing. Like for example, got metadata. I'm going to test number one whether Azure Purview is able to get metadata. All right, and check for data types, whether the data types matches with the source or not. All right, and second thing is match whether business glossary mapping is correct or not. So you map the business glossary to the data catalog. All right, you with me so far? So that's one function. Second function is user access management, whether I can log in with Active Directory account or not. All right, whether the policy set for that account function as it should. Say, let's say a policy said I cannot access table D, then I should not be able to access table D when I do the test. You are with me so far? Yeah. Okay. So functional test is a test of functions. So you need to list. Don't need to list all the functions that we put in the proposal. Just say give an example. Say some of the functions that we'll be testing is this, but it's not limited to this. It's based on the whatever we have proposed and or based on the requirements. All right. So here. You need to change it to say that this one we're just testing integration points, and just list the integration points that you see that needs to be tested. Okay, all right. User acceptance test. Not so much of this. It's more on this. Okay, but you need to find a way to like elaborate more. So because like, or maybe you might want to combine this somewhere. I'm not sure, but one-liner is a bit don't look very nice lah, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but you're right. Is mainly this one. Or you can put second point is to verify whether the implementation is done correctly. Okay, all right. Performance tests. Yeah, it's more of this. It's not on this, and it's not on this. Security is under functional tests. All right. So again, you may, since this one-liner, you may want to combine these two slides. Right, or maybe if you don't want to combine, then you might want to find a way to expand more on performance. Just add a bit of PS. Maybe you can explain what a performance test is, and why we do it. Then before you put uh, the end goal lah, of this test lah, what you want to achieve lah. Okay. All right. Check for I think this is more some item in your functional tests. Okay, because DQS is an application in the Microsoft suite. All right, so you can just say check for data quality service. Basically, this application, the data quality service, cleans the data lah. You will build the knowledge base, and knowledge base is the rules on how you're going to clean the data, right? So once you build the knowledge base and publish it, you can use that knowledge base with SSIS, which is the ETL, to automatically clean the data, right? So you mean so far? Yeah, you're a bit soft. I can't hear you already. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So maybe you revise a bit lah on your current slide, then maybe send it out. Okay. If you need supporting documents, I will send the whatever I showed you, the diagram I showed you earlier. But for the latest proposal, mbank proposal, you ask from your link or Derek lah. Okay, sure. All right. Thanks. All right. Bye.